So my name is Craig Buscher. If you don't know me, I live in Prairie, Montana, south of Livingston in the Paradise Valley. For a living now, I was a elementary special education school teacher, and since 2014, I teach a little bit for the University of Montana, but mostly I do literacy coaching and consulting. So that's around the state of Montana, but also I'm in different parts of the country. And I have one claim to fame where I can say world because I did present in Morocco, but nowhere else. Otherwise in the United States. So I love that I get to do this. Happy that you're all here with me today. So our topic is from sounds to prints, ensuring early literacy success. So we're going to start. I'll just share a couple of things that we all need to know about to help the session go a little more smoother and for more takeaways. I'm going to talk just a little bit about oral blending and segmenting. That's not the main point, but what we're going to focus on really is early phonics instruction and really early reading success for our students. And that does require phoneme blending and segmenting. So I don't want to leave that out, but most of the time I'll spend talking about some things we want to think about for early alphabet instruction and the pacing of our instruction, which might be a little surprising, and then some decoding and spelling routines. So that's the content. When we think about so what, so the big so what's in this presentation are really making sure that there's the underlying skills that we need for proficient reading and spelling have been addressed. And if we do that and we do that well and we adjust for different students depending on where they are and how long it's taking them to pick up these skills, we need to know that if we really want to have the most success in building these proficient word reading brains right from the start. And I say from the start, I'm talking about 4 years old when they come into preschool and up through, really probably into third grade. And when you're on that progression from being a non-reader or, in the pre-reading phase and then beginning reading phase and then moving into that proficient reading. And then helping you, have knowledge and tools to differentiate your instruction. And the research really, indicates that if you want each of your students to be as successful as possible, you really do need to differentiate your phonics instruction. And so a lot of this, to say it really simply, is being smarter than your programs. I wish they were perfect. Even if they were perfect, they're not going to work for everybody. You would still have to differentiate. All right. So one way to frame when we're thinking about our early learners and or just building these reading brains, you can have four potential profiles. So one would be a child who knows their letter sounds really well. You show them different letters of the alphabet, different graphemes like CH or two E's, and they can tell you pretty easily what that sound is, but they can't blend. So when they
Craig,
look at a
move your
word,
slide.
sorry,
Move your slide. You're on a slide that's not what we see.
I did. I'm on the. Are you not seeing possible early reading challenges?
Nope.
Oh gosh. So I am. Not going well, Jackie.
Let's see. Let's have Kim get ready to share. Have Kim get ready to share your PowerPoint.
That's the PDF, so you'd have to scroll, I think.
She has your she has your real PowerPoint. But
will this one work? Will this
It'll
one work?
Yeah, if you keep scrolling to the so what. And then now we're on the possible early reading challenges. You're seeing that okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I'm on that first bullet where you can have an early reader solid with their letter sounds, but they don't know how to blend. So when they see a word, they'll say the sounds, but they won't say the word because they don't know how to blend those sounds together. The other possibility would be a reader who's not solid with their letter sounds. So you show them different letters and maybe they know the name, and maybe they know the sound, but they're not very automatic and they're not very proficient. So you really want them to very automatically see a symbol and tell you the sound. So some students can't do that, but they can blend. So if I said out loud, what word is this? Sh, e, and they could tell me sheep. Whereas the first profile, if I said sh, e, they wouldn't be able to put that together as sheep. They can tell me the letter sounds, correspondences, but they can't form. Or you can have a child, I forgot to simplify this, I took out the fourth profile. So well, there's three profiles. So hold on, I'm still in that last. So the third profile is a reader who they're solid with the letter correspondences and they can blend, but they systematically sound out every word and they just keep doing that over and over and over. The other profile would be if you can't do either. If you're not proficient with your letter sounds and you can't blend. Okay, we can go to the next. So I want to talk just a little bit about oral blending and segmenting, because again, this is a prerequisite skill. So and some things from the teacher perspective for us all to make sure we're aware of is this distinction between a continuous consonant sound and a stop consonant sound. So the continuant sounds, and you may have heard this before, are the sounds that you can stretch. Oh. Whereas the stop consonant sounds, it's a puff of air and then that sound is gone. As in and k and ch and and so that can be a little bit of a difference if you're really trying to help a child learn how to blend and segment. Working with continuous sounds at the beginning of the word can be a little easier because you can stretch them. So sometimes in my program, if I know a child is really struggling to blend and segment, and the word, let's say the word is pat, and begins with a stop sound, I'll change pat to sat. And that way I can stretch that first sound and help them be more successful. All right, we can go to the next one. But the other prerequisite information to consider is as we're moving students from first learning how to blend and segment, we're going to start with really small words like so and chew and though and toe and high. So all those words have two sounds as in the next row, it and on and as and ebb and ate and own. So these are all words we could do orally that only have two sounds. And teaching them how to blend these sounds together to make a word or to take that word and pull it apart and tell me what the sounds are. When you can do that with two sounds, we want to go to three sounds. And those three sounds without any blends. There's no consonant blends in these words. I gave you a wild assortment of words to make the point. That doesn't matter when you're teaching a child how to blend and segment. There's no print. And this is just oral, and we're saying these words out loud and these sounds out loud. And so it doesn't matter how they're spelled. It just matters how many sounds there are. So leash has five sounds, or sorry, five letters, but there's only three sounds. So right at CVC in terms of the sound configuration. O, E, sh, just three sounds. And then eventually we want to move to words that have blends. So words like fly and free and east. And then words that have a blend in the beginning. Now we have four sounds, or a blend at the end with four sounds, and so forth and so on. So that's our progression. And I'll show you again what this looks like. So we can go to the next. So you want to, programs can have you spend a lot of time on having kids blend compound words and syllables, but that's not really where you want to be. You want to spend most of your time getting to the smaller level. So having them blend what's called body coda, and I'll show that to you in a second. And also onset rhyme, blending onset rhyme. But still, that's not where you want to be. Where you want to be is blending phonemes. So you want to get to two phonemes blending as soon as possible. And I'm going to show you, just make sure we're clear. I'll show you what it looks like. And then progress to three phonemes, and then progress to words that have blends and 3 to 5 sounds. If we go to the next slide, I'll talk through that more explicitly. So before a child can blend blend phonemes. So one thing you might want to see is, can they blend if I do body coda? So with body coda, you're taking a 3-sound word and you're saying the first 2 sounds together. So I would say meat, and I'm hoping that they'll say meat. So I'm going to say 2 parts of the word. You put them together to make the word. Ready? Or sorry, meat. What word? Meat. Good. Let's try another one. Say, full, ba, good. And that's the easiest. Now, if you're not at the syllable or compound word level, so this what's called body coda is the easiest level to blend. So once they can do this, move on. Move on to onset rhyme. And now we're just shifting. We're saying the first sound by itself and the second and third sounds together. So listen to me. Eat. Put that together. What's the word? Meat. Good. Sail. Push them together. What's the word? Sail. Good. So most programs do onset rhyme and they don't do body coda. And you can easily switch that. If your program is doing onset rhyme and they don't know how to do that, just change it. Change og to fag. And that's easier. Does that make sense? Do you have a question? Okay, we can go to the next. So again, really where you want to be is blending at the phoneme level. So I'm going to say 2 sounds and you push them together and say the word. Ready? E, me. Great, nice job. And then I'm not going to go through this whole progression, but I just want to be really clear. So a lot of times in classrooms when a child is struggling, it's because they can't blend. And we're ahead of the game. We want them to read words and they're never going to be able to read the word until they can blend. And so again, this now is just a precursor to what's coming next. So you just want to make sure that if you're getting ready to have children read a word, they have to be able to blend and segment. So let's go, I hope you can see in this slide, that's that progression of going from 2 sounds to 3, then to words with blends. So let's talk about segmenting quickly. And so here what we first teach is I'm going to say a word and you tell me the first sound of the word. Then I'm going to say a word and you tell me the last sound of the word. Now I'm going to say a word and you tell me the middle sound, which is much harder. And then eventually I want to give children a 2-sound word and for them to tell me both sounds of the word. And then same progression as blending. Then go to 3 sounds and then go to words that have blend. So if we want to go to the segmenting slide, the next slide. So this looks very much the same, right? When we get to this point, I skipped this slide. You could do this at the onset rhyme and body coda level, but it's a little easier. Sometimes that's kind of complicated to explain. But this is the goal for me to say to a child, I'm going to say a word and you tell me the sounds in that word. Ready? Me. Say me. Good. What are the sounds in me? E. Good. And then we'll go to 3-sound words and then, same progression as blending. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So we do want this phonemic practice for most students to be brief, but we also want it to be individualized. So some students are going to pick this up very fast and some very slowly. So we need to know who that is and differentiate accordingly. And then just be careful. You want to spend the bulk of your time with blending and segmenting phonemes. Blending is developmentally easier than segmenting, so keep that in mind. So usually for most students, they'll learn how to blend 2 sounds before they can segment 2 sounds. And they'll learn how to blend 3 sounds before they can segment a 3-sound word. And then if you have to, you can backtrack to the body coda onset rhyme level if they're really struggling at the phoneme level. If you're teaching students in preschool, then onset rhyme body coda level is a really good place to be. And then maybe towards the end of the year, you can start seeing if they can blend and segment 2 sounds, and if they can do it, then do 3. Keep going as far as whatever they can do, you want to keep moving. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the main point of today is to talk about alphabet learning and then getting into this being an early reader and speller. So I say meanwhile back at Schoolhouse Rock. So meaning that you're making sure that kids can blend and segment orally. At the same time, you want to do a really good job of teaching the alphabet. So let's go to the next slide. So there's a term in research called PAL. The acronym is PAL. It's kind of a great acronym. And it stands for Paired Associate Learning. And it's just the idea that when you're learning something new, it's often a shape, like with letters. And you're associating a name with a particular shape. So this applies too to, when you're really little and we point to a bottle and we say, this is a bottle. This is a bottle. Bottle. If we say it a zillion times, and then at some point you hold it up and the child goes, ba. And you're like, yay, he said bottle. Oh my gosh. And we're all excited. So this is the same idea with letter symbols, that we're showing them a symbol. What's a little trickier though is we want them to eventually say 2 different things. We want them to say the name of the letter and the sound of the letter. So that's a little harder, right? It's harder than this is a bottle. We hold up a letter B and we want them to say B and B, eventually. So also consider with this that with letter symbols, we want to go from visual to verbal and verbal to visual. So another way to say that is symbol to sound, sound to symbol. You have to do both. So I show you a letter B and I want them to go, B. That's B. And I go, that is. And then I also want to flip that around and I want to say B. B. What letter represents B? Yep, that's a B. Good job. So you have to go in both directions. Most programs go symbol to sound, and some of them don't go sound to symbol, which is partly probably why a lot of children don't become good spellers, because they don't get enough practice with that. And that's harder. It's harder to go to sound to symbol. So we really should have more of that than symbol to sound. I don't think I've ever seen a program that does more sound to symbol than symbol to sound, but that's probably what we should be doing. And then again, individual children are going to differ in their ability to make the association between this symbol and its name and sound. So some kids are going to need a lot more, students are going to need more repetitions. So in this research, where PAL becomes really important is this last bullet, that what determined more than anything else a child's ability to associate letters with their names and sounds is the amount of PAL that they received. The amount of repetition where you show them a letter and they told you the sound, or vice versa, you gave them a sound and they told you the letter. The more times that happened, the better they knew their letters. It's kind of as simple as that. So you want to make sure you're providing a lot of opportunities and spaced over time. So space practice, space practice, space practice, until that they're so they're super solid. Do you have a question or thought about that? You can go to the next slide. Really. So this would be symbol to sound, right? They look at the letter and they go, that's X. That's, what else can it be? What's AI? A. And then if you go to the next slide. And it can help for memory purposes to attach a keyword in there. So when they see, say, the B, they're going to say, that's a B, like in ball, and it says B. B, ball, B. And then eventually we don't want them to say ball. We just want them to say, that's a B, B. And then eventually that's B. So there is a progression there. First learning the sound that can really help to have a keyword, name, keyword, sound, then name and sound, and then just sound. A little bit of a funny story. I was working with a district and they were great with the repetitions with PAL. It was so much repetition, and it got to be like March, and the kids were still saying "bee ball buh." I said, "Why are they still saying ball?" I'm like, "We don't know. That's the routine." I'm like, well, they don't need to say ball anymore. They know these so well. But you don't want them to say ball at this point. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And then with sound a symbol, right? That's again when you're saying say good. What letter? What letter? That's a P. Good job. Say eh. What letter? E. Good. Say what letters? TH. Yeah, what do we call that? Yep, that's a digraph. That's right. How about this sound? Also TH. That's right. Good job. Say A. How do we spell A? And this, when you get to long vowels, this is a long answer. How do you spell A? A by itself, AI, AY, EI, EIGH, A dash E, right? So there's a lot. Sometimes EY. So that's one of the reasons why it's harder to go sound to symbol is because there can be a lot of answers to that question. What says A? And really, you're looking for what you've been teaching and any prior knowledge. All right. So this slide here is talking about a study that was looking at letter name and sound learning. And basically the learning was enhanced again by the more visual to verbal and verbal to visual opportunities that students received. The more PAL, the better the learning. And just so you know, in this study, they were using very consistent routines. And so that, is probably an important factor. So whatever your routine is, you want that to be, where all students understand the routine and you're consistent with it. It also involved a lot of choral responding. And I do see this a lot in classrooms where certain kids are responding and other kids are not. And you really want to make sure that everybody is responding. So, and if they don't respond in a choral response, then you want to pay attention to that and get them to respond individually if they have to. Also involved in that study was corrective feedback. So if they make a mistake, and we want to really message the students, it's okay to make a mistake. That's good for your learning. It's okay. Because it can be very upsetting, right? Especially if you're 4 or 5 and 6. You learn that you don't like mistakes. If anybody here is working with students who are dual language learners, so they did think about that in this study, and they added in a piece where, in addition to the repetitions, they added in the teaching of the articulatory features. So what does it look like when I say but? What does it feel like? So they probably have mirrors, and you can see your mouth, and we talked through, put your lips together, pop them out. Buh, buh, buh. Yeah, nice job. And that helped the dual language learners. It didn't really make a difference for the non-dual language learners. If a child has really weak phonology, I would suspect it will really help them as well. So it's been common practice in some programs to add in our articulatory features, and in this study, it didn't make that much of an impact if you're an English only child. Also in the study, language proficiency predicted letter learning. So this has been a really new finding, and it's really critical. The students who have the students that you have that their overall oral language skills are low are the ones that are progressing the most slowly. The stronger language is facilitating even the learning of letters. So you got to be careful with that, right? Because if they're not learning their letters, it's very likely that their oral language skills are low. And you also need to address that. In an ideal world, you're still teaching them the letters, but you're helping to build the oral language skills. And that would be through, vocabulary, read alouds, discussions. Not a part of this talk, but okay, we can go on to, does anybody have a question or comment? All right, I want to cover one more topic and then I'll have you go into a breakout room for a little bit. So I want to talk about pacing, and that the traditional, you can go to the next. The traditional pacing has been one letter a week for young children. And there wasn't a lot of question like why are we doing one letter a week? And now we're questioning it. Why are we doing one letter a week? Is that most effective? And so the first study that I know of that really looked at that seriously was in 2012, so it's not that long ago. And so they looked at what if you learn one letter a week, but what if you learn one letter a day? And this was in kindergarten. And the students who learned one letter a day far outpaced the children who learned one letter a week. And they think it's because they got more PAL. The earlier you taught the letters, the more repetition they got over time. And the learning was much more solid. So in the study, when they looked at who got one letter a week versus who got one letter every day, there was a significant difference in risk. So you got 5 letters per week, excuse me, it was 1.5 times more effective in reducing the number of students at risk and 2.9 times more effective in increasing the number of students at benchmark. So pretty significant. Almost 3 times. That's a huge outcome. So we can go to the next slide. So since then, there's been some other studies on pacing, and they're all finding the same thing. The faster the pace, the more the students learn. And this is even for students with very little letter knowledge at the beginning of the study. And I think in one of these studies anyway, the kids who had, yeah, that was in this one, who knew the least improved the most. Whereas we might think if you go too fast, the kids who don't know much about letters are really going to struggle. And this study showed the exact opposite. The kids that learned the most were the kids that knew the least with a faster pace. And that translated, which is also really important. So the faster pace of learning the letters also translated into being more accurate word readers early on. They knew their sight words better and they could spell better. So it wasn't just about learning letters, it translated into better reading. Um, and interesting, the students with the highest letter knowledge benefited on word reading accuracy only, and they didn't really benefit in other areas. So that was kind of saying that, again, you really need to differentiate. And if kids know their letters really well, you want to move on to reading. Those kids should be reading. If they can blend and they know their letters, they should be reading words. All right. We can go to the next slide. So this was a similar study looking at the same thing on pacing. And in this study, they were teaching not just the letter sounds, but they were doing some phonemic activities, matching sounds to letters, practicing blending, practicing word reading, practicing letter writing and spelling. And these were to kindergarten and first grade students with really low alphabet knowledge. And their fast condition was in the time of the study, which was short. I forget the length of time, but it wasn't a long time. 15 letters versus 10. And this was one-on-one instruction, which is kind of problematic, but that's hard for us to do. But the faster pace of instruction, so learning 15 graphemes in this short amount of time versus 10. So that's 2 to 4 letters a week versus 1 to 3. So those kids had better letter sound knowledge. They were better at writing the letters, and they were also better at word reading. Okay, so can we set up a breakout, and then I'm just gonna ask you to talk to your colleagues a little bit about some of the things that we talked about so far. So, are you making sure before you have kids read words, can they blend? And this can be true if you're a second grade teacher. There are kids who still can't blend and segment. So are you making sure that they know how to blend and segment? And then what is your pacing? And how much, part of the pacing is the review. How do you review? How often do you do that? So that's what I would like you to share with each other. And we'll just do a few minutes, really.
I've never done these rooms before. Everyone was assigned a room, so I'm not quite sure.
You can manually add, it looks like Gail and Carla. You should be able to put them into a room.
Carla is grayed out. It says unassigned and it won't let me do it. Gail was assigned to room 3, I think.
So I'm Gail. Do I just go to my join room? Yep, I see it.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know, it didn't assign you guys to a room, I guess, which is weird.
I
I
didn't
said
get a
assign
pop-up.
participants. I don't know. I haven't done this one before.
I wonder if we're like hosts or
Maybe. Yeah, because
I don't.
yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see it because you were making them. But generally, when you click on manage rooms, you can assign on people who haven't gone to one. You can push them in there.
Yeah, it says assign.
I'm going to go join another one.
Eva and Claire, can you guys join a room on your own?
I'll try one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I should be able to, it looks like. I'll try it.
Which one are you going to, Claire? I'll go to a different one.
She's already gone.
No. I'll go to room 5.
Jackie,
Yeah.
how many minutes do you want them in there for?
The 2 that I popped in are in good conversation, so I'd give them
Okay.
3 more
I
minutes.
just didn't want to close them too soon.
Yeah, I agree. They have great people in each of those rooms, so
Good, and I didn't even assign them. I just did it randomly.
yeah.
I don't know. I've never done this on Teams. I've always done it on Zoom.
I can't, with my video on, I can't do anything.
Oh,
My husband and I are going to try a couple different things and try to figure out what's going on. I will say that the video cards in these ThinkPads don't always hold up to the amount of video that we ask it to upload and download.
how new is your computer?
3 years.
You should have been on rotation then to get a new one. Because I just got a new one.
Well, I mean, I got a brand new one when I started 3 years ago.
Oh,
So.
I didn't have a new one. Mine was hand me down,
Mine
and then
was
I
still
got
in the
another one.
box. So yeah. But I do have the option to use my husband's PC for these, and
Mhm.
I don't think I would have an issue at all.
Right.
At least not with video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you able to broadcast
think-
to the rooms that there's
Is
2
that
more
what
minutes?
this little, yeah, I'll make an announcement.
Oh, Craig is asking if we can end it, so
Oh, okay. Hold on, let me just cancel it and then let's see. I have to close rooms. Let me see how I do this. Oh, here we go. All right.
Nice. At a college, I get, but
Okay. All right, so hopefully you had a chance to think about that. A good question about the UFly program, which can actually move pretty quickly. So it is okay. It is okay to think about, you do want to make adjustments. The research is more so saying that the faster pace is better because you get more repetitions. But I do think a program like UFly, if you're familiar with it, it does move really fast. And there, I think you do need to take some pauses and slow down a little bit. All right, we can go to the next slide. So let's talk about, so now we know letters sounds really well. We can blend and segment. So let's talk about some things with phonics instruction. That's probably not going to surprise you, right? But we do want explicit instruction and sound symbol relationships. It's hard to learn those relationships through osmosis. Somebody has to teach you. And then you want to make sure as you're becoming a beginning reader that we're also helping students become a beginning speller. In an ideal world, whatever concept you're teaching, they're learning how to read words and they're learning how to spell those words also. And then keep in mind, just like we said with going from sound to symbol is harder than symbol to sound, spelling or encoding is harder than decoding. So really, we should probably be spending more time giving students more practice with spelling the words and reading them. You also get a reciprocal benefit. If you learn how to spell a word really well, that typically translates into I can read it well also. The spelling impacts decoding. Decoding doesn't necessarily impact spelling. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So let's think about routines. And again, a program like UFly does this really well. So another issue that we've had is we teach all the letters and we do that very systematically, and then they know the letters and then we build words. So that's too long. If you're in kindergarten, once we teach you a subset of letters and you know those sounds pretty well, and you can blend and segment, you should be reading and spelling words with those letters. So if you can tell me pretty proficiently that T is T, and L is ol, and P is P, and F is F, and B is B, I'm going to add in a couple vowels, and then I'm going to start having you read words. And I'm going to have you start spelling those words. Okay, so we don't want to wait, right? Try to get to the reading and spelling of words as quickly as we can, and that's going to be more repetitions, and you're going to build better reading brains. So that we can go to the next slide. So something else to think about, and there's really only one research study, unless there's been one recently that's been done since, but one that I know of that looked at, traditionally when we teach children how to decode, we do segmented phonation, which means we'll point to the letters one at a time and we go, eh, They say, what's that word? And of course you want them to say thin. For a lot of students, they end up making a lot of mistakes with segmented blending. And the most common mistake they make is they don't remember what the first sound was, and they get that wrong. So they say the sounds, or you say the sounds, and then when they try to say fin, they don't say fin. And usually they miss the first sound. So if we go to the next slide, I think, yeah. So the other option would be to what's called connected phonation. So this is where you point to the word and you drag your finger really slowly under the word and you don't pause. So you go fin. If you've never done that, you have to practice it. Because before I did that, I would keep saying it. And I'm like, no, wait. So stretch it out. Fin. What's that word? Fin. So in that study, the children that learned the connective phonation did a better job. They were better, more accurate decoders than the segmented group. What else? I was going to say something else about that, and I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so no, notice with fin that word begins with a continuous sound, right? If that was a P and this word was pin, the P, you can't stretch. So in that study, they started with first letters that were continuous, and then they added in some of the stop sounds. All right, we go to the next slide. So for some students, that's still not enough. And when you help them blend and you say, "What's the word?" and they still don't say the right word. And quite often, the most common issue that students will make, the error that they make, is on the vowel. That's the hardest part of the word. So I picked this up from a program or from a book I read that said, have them say the sound of the vowel first, then say the word really slowly, and then have them say the word. So for fin, you would point to the I and say I, and they would say I with you, and then you would go to the beginning of the word and say that stretch it in. So it's I in fin. And I think you'll find that the students, that really helps eliminate a lot of their errors. So I just call that vowel first blending. Say the sound of the vowel first. Or we can go to the next slide. And same idea. This is just a word that's a little harder. There's more sounds. There's a blend at the end. There's a vowel team. But you can do the same thing. We can do this as p, ow, ts. And for some students to say pounce, this just might be too many sounds and you have a blend, and the owl sound is a tricky vowel sound. So it may work better to do the connected phonation. So if you go to the next slide, and I did start this with a stop sound, so you can't stretch p, right? So you're going to stretch it. You're going to go right into the owl sound. Pounce, pounce. And if you go to the next slide, or if they're really struggling, then I'm going to point to the OU, and we're going to say ow, and then we're going to stretch it. Pounce, pounce. All right, so try that, the continuous and or the vowel first blending, especially for those students who struggle. We can skip this slide. It's just saying that's a study that says connected phonation was more effective than the segmented. All right. So the other thing we want to think about is the encoding or spelling instruction. So again, this is harder. It's harder to spell words than to decode them. And there's lots of reasons why. One reason why is it's harder to segment than to blend. So when you read, you blend. When you spell, you segment. So already spelling is harder because segmenting is harder. Also, you have to hold the phonemes in memory. So if I said the word is pounce, what's the word, everybody? Pounce. Good. Say the sounds. Ow. Spell it. So now you have to remember all those sounds. You have to hold them in memory as you're trying to write out the letters that represent those sounds. Also, like in a word like pounce, so you get to the ow, and there's options. Is that an OU or is it OW? And sometimes they might not know. Or you get to this at the end of pounce. And how do I spell that? Is that an S? Is it an SE? Is it two S's? Is it CE? So you sometimes have a lot of options. And so that would be the same. Like long vowel sounds notoriously are spelled in many different ways. So those are very hard and take a lot of repetition. The k sound is very hard to spell. There's also a lot of variations of that, and there's rules. You can use the C in the beginning, but only if there's an A or an O or a U or a consonant after it. Otherwise, you have to use a K. Or you're going to use CK, but only at the end. And if it's after a short vowel, if it's at the end and after a long vowel, you're not going to use CK. So you get all these rules and complications. Also, to spell, you have to write it down. So then your brain has to communicate with your fingertips to physically put out those letter symbols and get them onto paper. I hope you're seeing why spelling is much harder than decoding and why it makes sense that you need more practice. We should be doing more spelling than decoding. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And I think I said all that, so we can go to the next one. So, we talked about routines earlier, and I'm a real stickler for routines with spelling. So I say the word, and I say it really clearly. Sometimes I say it multiple times. You all have to say it back to me. Everybody says that word back. Sometimes I make you say it again. Then we're going to segment it. We're going to identify how many sounds, and we're going to spell that one phoneme at a time. So whether that's in the Elkonin boxes, other little grid boxes that you create, or whether you have them make one line for each sound. So I'm a real stickler. How many sounds was that? Good. Now go ahead and say each sound as you write the word. So the word was fin. So that's an F. It is an I. The N is an N. Now read what you wrote. So this step to me is non-negotiable, and it's really critical. When they write the word, have them read back what they wrote. Now you've just switched this activity from a production task to a receptive task. Producing things is hard. So now I've produced it and I made a mistake. And I look back at what I wrote, and kids, for the most part, if they really know that you're serious, that you need to look at the word, look at it and read it back to yourself. They'll go, oh, before they even read it, they go, oops, and then they fix their mistake. So that part's critical. And then, you want them to write these words from memory. So cover up the words, hide them, see if you can write it again, not in boxes. Just write it out. Okay, so I kind of went through fin a little bit. I cheated a little bit, but it would be right. I say fin, you say fin. We all segment fin. We indicate how many sounds there are in fin 3. Say we're going to spell that in 3 boxes. Then we spell one sound at a time. We're going to read it back, and then try to cover it up and write it from memory, not in boxes. All right, the next slide. So when you write words in boxes like this, just make sure if the word has 3 sounds, you're going to use 3 boxes. If the word has 4 sounds, you use 4 boxes. If the word has 5 sounds, you're going to use 5 boxes. There's a few exceptions to that, but generally, you can see sip and ship both have 3 sounds. So when you're spelling, when they're first learning a new pattern and they're spelling in boxes, that SH is going to go together. It's a team. That is 2 letters, but it's one grapheme and it needs to stay together. If you're spelling slip, there's a 4th sound in there, so you need 4 boxes. Sift, right? That's 4 sounds. Still, we're back to 3 sounds, so it's 3 boxes. Fame, 3 sounds, so 3 boxes, so the E is going to go, with the M, and so forth and so on. Do you have a question? I'm also a stickler for this. I really believe when students are first learning a new pattern that they should be writing them in boxes first and really making that very specific sound to symbol connection. Or we can go to the next one. I see we're almost out of time. Gosh, was that the last slide? No way, Kimberly. That never happened. Write this down, everybody. It was January 14th, 2026. All right, so here's what we covered today. to sum up. So to successfully decode, before you can put words in front of students, you need to know, are they really solid with the letter sound correspondences that are in those words? We want that to be automatic. They can look at those symbols and say those sounds really quickly. Can they blend? If they can't blend, then they need to work on blending. With alphabet instruction, in all these studies, the faster pace wins out every time. Kids learn more, even the kids with the least amount of knowledge. And a big point there again was the symbol to sound, sound to symbol. Make sure you do both. With decoding, you have to make sure they're automatic with letter sounds and they can blend. Try that continuous phonation first. Try the vowel first blending if you need to. If you want them to be accurate, they'll never be fast, they'll never be automatic if they're not accurate. And then encoding, be a real stickler with your routine, stick to it. Really encourage you to have them first write those, figure out how many sounds and write them in boxes. Read it back. Read back what you wrote. Read back what you wrote. All right, I think that's it. Do we have a comment or question before we sign off? Jackie or Kimberly?
If anybody has questions, now's a good time to ask. But we're going to give you some information from OPI on some more professional learning opportunities that and some new things that are happening. So if you could stay on, we'd love that. I did put the feedback form in the chat. If you fill out the feedback form, you'll get a response from Google that says, thank you for filling out the form. And there is a link in there that you need to grab. That is your PDU. It's based on if you attended, and our only way to track your attendance is through this feedback form. It's also how we keep bringing you topics that you need and want. So if there are questions, unmute yourself or raise your hand or put it in the chat.
You're welcome, Ashley. Thank you.
We'll start with Claire. So we want to stop sharing and let Claire share her screen.
And I can be really fast, like 20 seconds if my screen cooperates. Can you see it?
Yep.
It's just a flyer. So I know these are early literacy and I learn a lot from early literacy. Next week, I'm doing a session that focuses a little on secondary literacy. And it's pretty introductory vocab and morphology to strengthen comprehension. So if you want to learn more about secondary literacy, or you have educators in your school who are wondering where the secondary literacy PD is, it would be great to have you. So you can email me too. My email is on that flyer if you have any questions. So thanks for letting me share this, Jackie.
Yeah, there's a link for the flyer in the chat there if
Yep.
you missed that. And then Eva, I think Kim is going to share on Eva's behalf because she and I must get our internet from the same dollar store.
Yeah, from the garbage can. My share never works. But hi, everybody. And thanks, Craig. I always learn a lot in these. So thank you for sharing. I just
Welcome.
wanted to share with all the educators here that we updated the PD calendar and catalog, and I'm dropping the link in the chat. So if you go to that link and scroll down, the professional learning calendar is there. And just note that on the calendar are events that happen live. So they have a start date and an end date. Wait, go back. Wait, go back. And then there's a learning catalog under that, which I'll talk about in just a second. And those are asynchronous events that are open longer than a start and end date. If you go to the next page, thanks, Kim. So the calendar looks like this, and down at the bottom, I know it's hard to see, but you can add this to your own Google Calendar if you have one. And then as events populate, they'll show up on your Google Calendar, or go to the next slide, Kim, please. Or if you click on the individual event, you can copy that event to your calendar if you're interested in that. If you add this calendar to your own personal Google Calendar, you'll be able to search all of the events by keyword. You can't do that when it's on the OPI site, but if you add it to yours, you can search events, and it's being populated daily. So check back if you don't see something that interests you or is relevant to you. We're getting a lot of events added to that as we go. And then next slide, please, Kim. And then we also have the course catalog, and this is searchable by category, provider, grade level, if you're an educator, a para, admin, and then also cost. You can search free events or paid events. Next page, please, Kim. Last thing I'll share. And then if you click on the individual tile, it will expand and show you the description, the categories it meets, and then you can click on those register/website buttons, and it will take you right to that provider's website. All of these providers are approved providers, so these events will result in OPI certificates for license renewal. And if you have any questions, I will drop my email in the chat. You can certainly reach out to me. Anything about PDUs, certificates, please let me know. I'm happy to help. And that's all I have on that. But we're super excited about this updated calendar.
Eva's the tech wizard.
Took a lot of troubleshooting. So if you find problems with it, please email me too. I'd appreciate it. Feedback is good.
Ooh, I'm a wizard too with tech.
If you don't know, the hub, the teacher learning hub, it was down for a while, but it's slowly coming back up. I'm not sure the number of courses that are live at this point. Maybe it's all of them. But Eva joined our team, and she's getting this whole professional development and PDUs and everything you need for your teaching licenses. We're getting it put together, and you can see this is a way that's very accessible, and we're really excited about the work that Eva has done. And then if you hear from Montana Reads Grant School, if you have any questions, you can certainly email me, but the team at Montana Reads has the answers, I promise. And we were happy to have them join us tonight too. Yeah, so if you have any questions, we're still here. Ask away. I'm sure Craig is itching to either get home or buy some swimming trunks at the hotel store.
Headed home. Darn it. Thanks, everybody.